Good morning, everybody. Unless, of course, you're watching this video in the evening. In that case, good evening. And you are watching Time Travel TV. And today we're going to talk about the Spanish Inquisition. Now, I bet you didn't expect this video to come up because it's about the Spanish Inquisition. Now, before I go on, we're not going to do any Monty Python references because it's a serious video. Okay, we might just do one Monty Python reference.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition!
So did you enjoy that? Because the only reference you're going to get, for now at least. Anyway, so we need to go back to around about 700-ish. And in the Iberian Peninsula, what we now know as Spain, is controlled by the Christians, or they're a form of Christians called the Goths, not the sort of Goths we know today. Anyway, then the Muslims come and take over, and then the Christians are expelled, although not completely. Some of them go up into the mountains and plan their comeback for the next 800 years. And around about 1490-ish, they come back, and they drive the Muslims out. And it's a chap called El Cid, who they made a very good film of, and one of the coolest endings of a film ever, really. So, in this new Christian Spain, the people in charge were people called Ferdinand and Isabella, and they didn't want people to not be Christians, specifically Catholics. They didn't want people not to be Catholics at all, didn't even like Protestants. They didn't like the Jews, they didn't like the Muslims, and they wanted them out. They wanted either converted to Catholicism or out, and some people didn't want to do this. So they made it law that everyone had to convert to Catholicism. Now, to get some backing behind this, they got the Pope to give a papal bull, which basically said, you must do this! Because the Pope was very important back then, and still is, but especially back then, it was very important. What they did, in order to weasel out all the little non-conformists, was they set up an inquiry, or an inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition, to try and weasel them all out. Now, sorry to burst everyone's bubble here, but the Spanish Inquisition was never unexpected. People always expected the Spanish Inquisition because they always gave a month's notice before knocking on your door and arresting you. They didn't only deal with Jews and Muslims, by the way. They also dealt with basically anyone who wasn't a Catholic and witches, because witches are everywhere, aren't they? So, what they would do is that they would give them a trial. They would always require evidence and testimonies. They're actually very sceptical of most people's testimonies, and if you gave false testimony for a witch, for instance, which was very common, you'd get quite harsh fines. So they actually gave quite fair trials, but when they did find you guilty, if they did find you guilty, that's when the not so nice things started, because they would start to torture you and execute you. The rack was one of their favourite, where they would stretch you really hard. Anyway, they ended up executing around about 2,000 people, and although the Spanish Inquisition was not as bad as what people say, they weren't as bad as the Roman Inquisition, they were still pretty ruthless. Now, they did start to go downhill considerably after about, in around about 1650-ish, and as the Enlightenment era came along, and by the time Napoleon came along and gave Spain to his brother, as you do, the Spanish Inquisition disappeared completely. Now, I hope you enjoyed that video. I did too. And if you did, please subscribe to Time Travel TV, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio.